Just the other day, I was at my brother's apartment with some of his friends, and we got on the topic of housing and the type of housing that we're going to live in for next semester. I'm sure you've seen these magazines kind of around campus, all the different options that you can live in for next semester or next term, wherever you're going to go. But I mentioned to them that I live in the dorms in Hillman Halls on campus. And one of his friends came up to me and said, "Why do you live in Hillman Halls?" And so, obviously there's a stigma set out against on-campus housing, but it got me thinking about why I chose to live in the on-campus dorms, but also the different things that we need to consider when deciding wherever we're going to live. In the survey that you guys filled out, I asked you what were the main things you look for when you decide where to live. And the most prevalent responses were the price, location, and environment. So sure, on-campus housing gets a stigma for being maybe too expensive or just for the young kids and things like that. But evaluating these three things actually shows it to be a very viable option for housing and one that should not be overlooked just because of the stigma. So the first we're going to talk about is the price. So in your survey, you mentioned that the majority of you pay between $200 and $400 a month for rent. It's believed that on-campus housing is too expensive and more expensive than off-campus housing. But in fact, every single on-campus option has a price choice that falls exactly within the category between $200 and $400. So it's really not more expensive. And in addition to that, there's price cuts that aren't very advertised, such as free parking. If you live on campus, you get free parking at those facilities. And many of those facilities also have the amenities all included, such as the utilities. And so price is actually something that should not be a concern when it comes to choosing whether or not you live on or off campus. And those prices, which I compared, were from the BYU housing rates, which were posted for this last year, and they can be found on the BYU housing page. But some of you also mentioned that you pay zero for rent. You live at home, perhaps. Zero rent is something really hard to beat, but the environment that comes along with on-campus housing is something that is worth the price. So that brings me to the location. Obviously, here's the map of campus that is found where it highlights the different areas of the on-campus housing. You can't get much closer to campus than on-campus housing. And there's several benefits to this. Not only do you save money and time for being closer to your classes, but it also provides a certain environment because of its ideal location. And there was a study actually done by a senior who she did it for her senior thesis, and she studied the effects of housing on the GPA. And the studies actually showed a strong correlation between living on campus housing and having a higher GPA. So not only academically does it help you from the close location to campus, but there's also a social component to look out for. And that was something that was a concern from evidence of your survey. Many of you believe that living on campus makes it very isolated. You're not around people your same age and things like that. But there are other things that the environment stimulates, such as your campus involvement. And another thing to mention is that there are so many different types of on-campus options. I live in the dorms here at Hillman Halls, but that's not the only option. There's apartment style, such as here in Heritage, and then there's so many other options, such as the YV Park, which is a little bit more off-campus, Wynot Terrace, and there's even a foreign language immersion living facility that's available if you want to learn the language and be immersed in it all the time. And so you don't have to take just my word for it. Back here at Hillman Halls was a girl named Emma Rose, who I interviewed, who has lived on campus for a fairly long amount of time. She's a junior at BYU, and she has spent 5 semesters living in the Hillman Hall dorms. And so I asked her, I said, why do you like on-campus housing? And it was for many of the same reasons that I explained to you today. She says it's close to my classes, so it's easier, not as stressful. And she also mentioned how it gave her easy access to everything. Campus is in a very populated area of Provo, so there's things to go out and do. You don't have to stay on campus all the time. And that she also found a greater connection to her school and to her friends that she made in school because she lived on campus. And so, going back to deciding where you're going to live for next semester, perhaps, or next term, there are all the different things to consider: the price, location, and environment. But I have found, from my personal experience, that living on campus provides the perfect medium. It provides a campus intimacy, but you still have the campus, off-campus independence available to you if you want. So when you're looking through here, looking at the price and the location and the environment of all the different places, I implore you to not overlook the fact of on-campus housing. The ideal place for you is closer than